Día de los Muertos is a celebration of remembrance for those who have passed on. And it's a way for the living to celebrate the beauty of life and community. Depending on where you go, you might dress up, see painted faces, eat your weight in sugar skulls, or witness a candlelight cemetery procession. The big question is, where can you experience the kind of Day of the Dead event you're looking for? To answer that, I'm back with Dr. Mathew Sandoval, an Arizona State University professor and expert on the culture and history of Day of the Dead. In our previous episode, he helped us understand the holiday's cultural origins. Today, he shares the top 5 Day of the Dead events in the U.S. Oh, and if you want to head south of the border to experience Día de los Muertos, you'll also hear about unmissable events in Mexico to add to your Day of the Dead bucket list. Where can you experience a very traditional Day of the Dead experience in the U.S.?
In downtown Los Angeles at a place called Placita Olvera, or Olvera Street, which is actually the epicenter of Los Angeles. It's like where Los Angeles was founded. It's the kernel of what became Los Angeles. It's there. It's held there. And it's very traditional. Like I said, the whole thing is ritually based. So you're not going to see like people dressed up in skulls and skeletons and stuff like that. In fact, what you'll see them is performing acts, ceremonial acts. It's really ritual based. So people will participate in ritual cleansings. It's led by medicine people, local medicine people like shamans and that kind of stuff. So it's very much rooted in tradition in a way that, because it's Los Angeles, it's almost counterintuitive. You would expect to see something that's like way more modern, but that celebration at Olvera Street is one of the most traditional celebrations in the United States. And at this point, I would say it remains one of the more traditional celebrations even in Mexico or the United States for that reason.
What is a good Día de Muertos event for families with kids?
The Muertos Fest in San Antonio is really geared towards a family outing. It's a 2-day festival that takes place at the end of October. It's really geared towards families as a whole with a lot of kids' activities. And kids really do participate in that one in a major way. I'm thinking back to a couple years ago when they had next to San Antonio, the town of Uvalde. If you remember Uvalde and the school shooting that happened there, that following Dia de Muertos, the students from that school gathered and made an altar for the friends and students that they lost. So it's very family-centric. Young kids definitely participate in that. And it's a beautiful 2-day event. So families don't have the pressure of like, oh, it's one day and I missed the Day of the Dead celebration. They get a couple cracks at going, and it's a kind of an all-day event.
So how about for a very celebratory atmosphere, just like the most fun party Dia de Muertos in the U.S.?
The Hollywood Forever Cemetery is one of the largest parties that you'll ever attend. It's 40 to 50,000 people jam-packed in the cemetery. And because it's in the epicenter of Hollywood, you are going to see some of the most dazzling Day of the Dead costumes that you've ever seen because you have professional costume designers making this stuff. You're going to see some of the most fantastic face paint, calaca face paint you've ever seen because they have professional makeup artists from Hollywood doing all of this stuff. And then they bring in like top-notch musical acts to perform as well. So it really is like a party atmosphere for sure, in a way that it is the most lively Day of the Dead celebration that I've ever been to. The party usually stops at midnight, but it'll go for a while. But it's definitely festive, definitely party atmosphere, for better or worse party atmosphere, I would say too, because of course, Dia de Muertos is all about taking things to excess. You try to eat as much as you can that day. And for most people, they try and drink as much as they can that day too. So it really does have that party atmosphere for sure.
And can anybody go to that, or do you have to get tickets?
It used to be an open event, but now you have to get tickets.
We'll put a link in the show notes for anyone interested. That event is happening October 26th in Los Angeles. What is a celebration that offers something unique that you might not find anywhere else?
Yeah, I would say for me, the most unique Dia de Muertos celebration takes place in Tucson, Arizona. In Tucson, it's referred to as the All Souls Procession. So the entire thing is a procession. It's about 70,000 people from Tucson who gather in the street and walk the streets together for several miles from one point to another point. And they make altars that have to be mobile because you have to walk length. So you'll find these incredible ofrendas that are incredibly innovative because they're like made on a shopping cart or made on a bicycle or made on a skateboard or mobile in some way, or you create an altar that you wear. I've seen wearable ofrendas there. So by virtue of the fact that it's a moving celebration over the course of an evening, people get incredibly creative and fun with the way that they're honoring their dead in a way that doesn't exist elsewhere. Most celebrations are like you gather at one spot, that takes place, and then you disperse at the end. Here, it's like this roaming kind of parade through the streets of Tucson, and it's incredible. It begins right before sundown, and then you get the sunset over the Catalina Mountains, which, of course, Arizona sunsets are beautiful. And then like you're walking in the dark with literally tens of thousands of other people. It's really quite special.
What personal favorite Day of the Dead celebration would you recommend in Mexico? And I'd like to bring back in travel writer Lauren Cocking, who joined us in our previous episode. She's based in Mexico City. So where would you go for a very picturesque Día de los Muertos?
I'm going to go with Mexico City. I think if anybody could take a week of their life and travel to Mexico City at the end of October, beginning of November, and just spend a week there during Dia de Muertos, you would be able to see myriad expressions of Day of the Dead. So you would see the kind of James Bond-ish, grand million people in the streets parade, right? So you'd get a chance to see it on that end. And then you'd be able to go to the Dolores Cemetery and see it celebrated in a very traditional way with families gathered around the cemetery. You'd be able to see the way that Halloween is starting to infiltrate Day of the Dead. You'd also be able to take a trip to the pyramids at Teotihuacan, which now has a Dia de Muertos celebration component to it too. So within a week's time, you could soak up Day of the Dead in a way that doesn't exist literally anywhere else in the world. So that would be my recommendation.
For me, it's Michoacan. Isla Janitzio is incredible. It was the first Day of the Dead celebration I went to, and it remains definitely one of the best. It has elements of everything, delicious food, because you're in Michoacan, of course. It has the traditional graveside vigils, the ofrendas, musical performances. Yeah, it's the perfect one for me.
How do you sort of insert yourself into like a sweet little Mexican family who's doing their tradition and you want to celebrate their grandma? How do you do that?
I think going to the cemetery itself, obviously it's really important to be respectful if you're going as an outsider to essentially observe these families over Day of the Dead. But you can go and you can walk around. You have to be very quiet and you can see people either cleaning or setting up or just kind of hanging out because they're already ready for the evening. As far as inserting yourself, a little tricky. But I think it's really cool to go and see and just be part of it and soak up the atmosphere because it is incredible. And also the journey to get there is beautiful. You have to take a little boat across the water because it's an island in the middle of a lake. And so they're all lit with candles and you can see the island off in the distance and it's glowing, literally. That's the image that stuck with me after visiting. So that would be my personal recommendation in Mexico for sure.
Dr. Mathew Sandoval and Lauren Cocking, thank you for joining us. And thank you to our listeners for being with us. If you're planning a trip, be sure to connect with a AAA travel advisor. Check out AAA.com/travel or visit your local branch. This podcast is a production of Auto Club Enterprises. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a review. I'm Angie Orth. Thank you for traveling with AAA.